From the front pages of your newspapers to the front of your television screens, we bring you the captivating stories, the stories making the headlines, and of course, all the trending matters here on your weekly dose of the headliner. Welcome viewers, this is your weekly episode and my name is Kurtley Gwindi, and of course we are going to get into the trenches with regards to matters that have been making waves and stories that of course capture the attention of the digital media, the traditional media and all kinds of media here in Zimbabwe and beyond. In today's episode we tackle a pressing issue that has been on the rise across Zimbabwe's teenage pregnancy matters. Recent statistics from the National AIDS Council reveal a troubling statistic and a surge in pregnancies amongst young girls, with approximately 2,000 girls in Bulawayo alone falling pregnant over the past 18 months. And while teenage pregnancy has always been a concern, experts have noted a disturbing link between this crisis as well as increasing rates of drug and substance abuse amongst adolescents. And yes, a pressing issue that we'll be breaking down. Of course, here we take a closer look at the root causes behind the surge with regards to examining the role of substance abuse in exacerbating the vulnerability of young girls and the often devastating consequences they are facing. But we're not just going to highlight the problem, we're also going to explore the potential solutions, what interventions can be made and are being put in place by our government structure, and how can communities also play a role with regards to working together with organizations and to make a real difference. And today we are joined by Tapiwa Kapfunde from Childline, a social worker of note who's also going to contribute immensely to the conversation, as well as dissect, also realize the divide and disconnect with regards to this matter, as well as the progress with regards to what Childline is doing in a bid to create a better Zimbabwe. Now, Tapiwa, welcome to the headliner.
Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Such a soft-spoken voice. It does speak highly to you being a social worker.
Thank you.
Softer.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And we are so happy to have you here. There's riveting statistics that we'll be bringing to the table, as well as a conversation that we look forward as well to you contributing to. But please just give us a general overview of the landscape of what it looks like right now on the ground with regards to teenage pregnancy and some of the matters adolescents are facing.
So it is quite a concerning issue, the issue of teen pregnancies and drug and substance abuse. We have since realized that the two are interlinked and they constantly influence each other, and they constantly exacerbate each other. So what it means to say is that the issue of drug and substance abuse, although we have had teen pregnancies before, but we have realized that with the surge in drug and substance abuse, cases of teen pregnancies have since gone higher. The reason for that is that there are so many contributing factors. The fact that children are being exposed to drug and substance abuse. We have seen that children are now getting into areas, drugs are now being peddled in areas where children are supposed to find safety. We have received cases of drug and substance abuses, drugs and substances being sold in schools, outside school gates, and things like that. And we have received cases of even some caregivers sending their children to go and get drugs for them, and in the way they are exposing children to harm. And now we have also realized issues to do with peer pressure and the rise in poverty in our communities. And as such, children are being taken advantage of. They are being put on the forefront to be drug peddlers, and also they are being made to take those toxic substances. And in the process, when they are now intoxicated, we've got older people that are now taking advantage of children in that intoxicated state.
Oh yeah.
So that has now resulted in teen pregnancies and our children contracting sexually transmitted diseases and of the sort.
Absolutely.
So it really is a concerning issue that we need to sit down and try and map a way forward as to how we can better protect our children.
Oh yes, better protecting our children being the
Yes.
order of the day. You've raised quite some pertinent points, some of them being poverty, lack of employment, and the caregivers themselves playing a major role in the grand scheme of things. And of course, we will dive into this critical discussion, most definitely unpacking, of course, some of these factors at play and offering insights into the efforts being made to secure a brighter future for Zimbabwe's youth. But for now, we will also take a look at the stories making the headlines here on the headliner. And we kickstart with the Herald, where headliner read, Harare City Council's Human Capital Development Department has come under fire for allegedly ignoring a directive from the local government board to restructure salaries and grades for directors and senior council employees. Obviously, something of note with regards to a discussion there where the Harare City Council is also being brought to book regarding this matter around salaries. We do know on the backdrop of some of the conversation around that is Councillor Jacob Mafume, and now we are also looking at some of these matters and more. Definitely a developing story. We move on to the Daily News, which tagged a government pursuing inciters afresh as it turns to rendition pacts to bring them to book. Now, the government is mulling invoking international law to extradite errant citizens as well as the residents outside Zimbabwe who are agitating for violence, anarchy, and uprisings in the country on social media. Now, we do know it was a very divisive week, and definitely we can't go without speaking about this here on the headliner, where an integral part of the nation's economy was also put to jeopardy regarding some of these uprisings as well as influences coming from outside the nation. Now, we do always urge here on the headliner, as has been our conversation even from last week, where we say let's use social media wisely as a nation. And of course, last but not least, we take a look at the Chronicle, which was tagged as ZIFA Evoke Warrior Pride. Now, exciting times beckon for domestic football following the launch of a national campaign by ZIFA, appealing to local designers and the game's enthusiasts to design unique and inspiring brands and kits that reflect national identity. Definitely a story we will be tracking, as well as keeping some of these new authorities that have been put into place. And of course, we can't go without saying that we stand behind the Warriors here on the headliner, and we're always excited to make sure that the conversation continues with regards to their development and their winning. That brings a close with regards to our very first segment here on the headliner. Please do stay tuned, as Tapiwa Kapfunde is going to be breaking down the critical discussion, as has been said here on the headliner, making sure that we leave no one and no stone unturned regarding adolescents and teenage pregnancy, amongst many other matters. Stay tuned and don't go anywhere. This is the headliner. Welcome back, viewers. This is the second segment of the headliner, and of course, we are so excited to be coming to your screens every week, same time, same place, with regards to critical discussions, some of them also being very pertinent to the everyday Zimbabwean community. And of course, today is a day like no other, as we will be talking all things to do with the pressing issue of teenage pregnancy, which is on a surge in the country. Now, we welcome once again Tapiwa Kapfunde from Childline. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And beyond the statistics, perhaps as we get right into it, what are some of the personal stories or cases that you've encountered that of course highlights the complexities as well as challenges of teen pregnancy, perhaps in Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwean landscape? We take it from Bulawayo. You did mention that you are also in Mutare, you are also in Chiredzi and Harare itself. Tell us about the complexities and challenges.
Okay, so as you might have mentioned, or I might have mentioned before, that we are we are in Bulawayo, we are in Harare, we are in Mutare, we are also in Chiredzi. Well, so we do have got a national helpline, that is our 116 phone, on which children call on everyday basis to report various cases that affect them. So we have realized from the statistics from our helpline, the one in Bulawayo in particular, we have recorded so many cases that are that of teenage pregnancies and drug and substance abuse. And from that background, and we have realized that in Bulawayo, there is a trend of what they call fuzu parties. It's a trend in Bulawayo. They've got, there's also an issue of absent parenting.
Yes.
We constantly realize that caregivers are migrating to South Africa, to Botswana, for greener pastures. And in that regard, they do leave their children behind. But in most cases, without properly assessing who is going to stay behind and look after the child.
Yes.
Without properly assessing the parenting methods of those that would have...
And even the environment.
And even the environment as well. So all those factors have contributed to the complexities that we are now facing, that we are now having children that are falling pregnant in their teenagers, children that are engaging in drug and substance abuse, because there are no proper support systems in place. There are no caregivers that are present to monitor and see what the child is doing, who they are hanging out with, and what they spend most of their time doing. So in that regard, we find that children are now exposed to social media in this digital era. We have seen online predators in relation to the fuzu parties that I was talking about. Yes. Children are being invited to these parties online, on WhatsApp platforms, on Facebook, on X, on various social media platforms. They get to link with those online predators, and as a result now they get taken advantage of, because these fuzu parties, as we have gathered, are being organized by older people, older women, older men. They do provide the liquor, they do provide the drugs, they do provide all sorts of things that are now exposing children to harm. And as a result, children are now getting intoxicated, like I have mentioned before. Some are even getting into addiction. They are now battling drug addiction at a very tender age. For our girls now, they are falling pregnant, and in most cases they don't even know who would be responsible for that pregnancy. So those are some of the complexities that we are seeing. And with the issue of absent parenting now, we are saying now the parent is migrated for greener pastures, but now they've left the child probably with the extended family or whoever they would have left the child with. And from our statistics, we've also realized that the perpetrator profile of people that are abusing children are mostly family members. So you'd find that a child might be sexually abused by their uncle, by their paternal aunt, or whoever, someone close, someone that would expect the child to trust. But now, the challenge now is...
And this person is entrusted with this child, and they take advantage of that.
And they take advantage of the child. So those are some of the complexities. To say a person whom we expect to provide support for the child is the person that's actually taking advantage of the child. I'll give you an example of a case that I've previously worked on. It was actually a case whereby a close relative, an uncle, got to a point of giving the child alcohol, and the child now was intoxicated and didn't know what was happening, and he ended up taking advantage of the child, and the child fell pregnant. It was now only after the child fell pregnant that they realized that something had happened. And the damage
the damage is done.
Definitely. So I would comment that issues to do with drug and substance abuse in relation to teen pregnancy is not children's business. It's adult business. It is our job as adults to create a conducive environment so that we prevent
some of these mistakes
these
and
things
errors
from even happening
Yeah.
in the first place.
Yeah.
Yes, we can talk response to say, no, we need to do this to respond to these problems. But I would suggest that we don't get to the problem in the first place.
We take initiative initially, which
to prevent.
absolutely prevention obviously
Yes.
is always better than cure, which then
Yes.
leads me into my next question to Pure. There has been obviously that surge you've spoken about at length about vuzu parties. Now it's two questions. How best are the adults? Let's break it down. How best are the adults benefiting from this? Is this a money-making scheme? Is this something that perhaps, you mentioned them being predators? As predators, is this psychosis matter? Or is there something that is happening between the lines that we are not seeing as the general populace? And why particularly, the second question, you've spoken about different cities in Zimbabwe where you are ever present. But we've only heard of vuzu parties being prevalent in Bulawayo. Why and how and what is causing all this to be happening in this context?
Well, I would like to think that the issue that I mentioned before, that as adults we are not doing enough to create a system where children can thrive in their own capacity as children. As such, if we do not provide those support systems, children will resort to other things that they are not supposed to resort to as a coping mechanism, perhaps. So what we are trying to articulate is that if we create a home environment whereby we talk about the difficult issues, because in our African context there are things that are called difficult conversations. Apparently, to say a parent cannot sit down with their child and tell them the dangers of having a boyfriend before they have reached the age of 18, right? The consequences that come with indulging in sexual activities before reaching the appropriate age. We have not normalized in our African homes to have those conversations. As a result, you would find that a parent would just come and say, I want you here by 6 p.m. Right? But they're not going an extra mile to explain to the child to say, why do I need you here at 6 p.m.?
Oh, yes.
Probably bad things happen when it's dark or whatever. But now the child is curious to know, why am I supposed to be home
I'm
by
being
6?
told, why
What's
should I
out
not?
there? What am I missing out? And for us, it has now become a taboo for us to mention to our children to say, if you engage in sexual activity, you will get pregnant, and it will affect your education, it will affect your career, it will affect quite a number of things in your life. So we are saying, let's create that environment as caregivers at home. Let's create that environment at school. Let us capacitate children to know how they can protect themselves. Of course, we always say protecting children is adult business, but in as much as it's adult business, it is also our job to let them know of the risks that are out there if they don't take certain precautions to protect themselves. And now in relation to the vuzu parties, if there is no proper monitoring, it's very easy for a child to go wayward and do other things. And for now, if caregivers are more focused on now making a living, make sure there's food on the table, that is okay. That is good. It's part of fulfilling the child's basic needs. But we also need to invest in making sure that the environment and the socialization that we're exposing our children to is also conducive for them to thrive, to know what's best for them, and for them to protect themselves from these harmful practices. So, for instance, I'll give you an example of how you can create that environment.
Absolutely. I was going to ask, as Childline, how best are we creating those kind of systems within the household, within the communities, within the churches, within the schools? The example.
So, I would say there is a need to constantly learn, because parenting in itself is revolving. You would see that the way that we were raised is quite different from the way the AMA 2K are being raised.
True story.
You cannot employ a parenting method from when you were raised and try to apply it to a 2K. In most cases, it won't work, because now even the environment that we are raising these children in has evolved. We've got social media, even the books that they now read at school, they are now, evolving. So what it then now means to say is you need to create time as a caregiver to see what your child is up to. You need to know who's their teacher. Do you know, there are some parents that don't even know who teaches their child at school. They don't even know if you ask them.
They're too busy.
What's the name of your child's teacher? They're like, no, they don't know. But we are saying, let us invest in those things. Know the name of your child's teacher. Get to know them on a certain level that relates to your child. At regular intervals, find time to go to the school and ask how your child is performing. Find out who your child is playing with. Who are they spending time with? What are they doing in their spare time? What are they seeing online? What are they searching? What are they doing? That will give you a perspective. Because now, if the child is invited to a vuzu party, and I've mentioned before that these things happen online, if the child is invited to a vuzu party and you are that kind of caregiver that do not even check what the child is browsing online, you will receive the shock of your life.
The invites will be, I think I got to take a share of my invites to my vuzu parties.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. So it all goes back to caregivers being more invested in issues that affect children. And I believe that we will be in a position to prevent.
Well, thank you very much. Quite a finite contribution you brought there. And if you are a caregiver, that does intersect, according to Tapiwa here, who joins us from Childline. You could be a parent, a community leader. You could simply be an uncle, an aunt, a grandmother, a grandfather. All the same, you do play the role of a guardian to a child, and very importantly, you definitely need to keep up with this conversation, as we'll be delving more into what is happening with regards to some of these community, I think we can call them community menaces. Yeah, and most definitely at Tapiwa, we do appreciate your conversation thus far. We will carry it further in the third and final segment here on The Headliner, where we take a look at all things to do with a teenage pregnancy, what is happening within the adolescent space, and of course a pertinent matter with regards to some of the social ills affecting the adult and the adolescent across the board here on The Headliner. Please don't go anywhere as we go further. Stay tuned. Hello viewers, and welcome back to our third and final segment here on The Headliner. And of course, this must be our favorite, which is the editor's choice, my personal favorite. And I'm your host, Kurtley Gwindi, taking a look at all things to do with what is happening with regards to some of our reporters, our editors, as well as contributors here at our Pocket Hill studios at ZBC. And today, like I mentioned earlier, I am joined none other than a business reporter, and that is Stanley James, who joins us with regards to a background that earmarks an anniversary of our structured currency, which is the Zimbabwe gold. Discussing all this and more, I welcome him to the studio. Stanley, such a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Thank you to all the viewers.
And most definitely, I know you've got a lot to unpack with regards to this structured currency marking a year's anniversary tomorrow, the 5th of April, as we know that it was launched on the 5th of April 2024. We take a look at all this and more, but you as the expert can discuss this a lot better. Over to you.
Basically, it's quite an interesting aspect in the history or economic history of Zimbabwe. Remember, the structured currency, the Zimbabwe gold, was unveiled as a long-lasting solution to current challenges that have been affecting the economy in the past few years. It was launched on the 5th of April 2024, and tomorrow, the 5th of April 2025, it will clock 1 year, implying that there has been a lot in terms of the journey through which the nation has traveled with this currency. Whilst there have been also some challenges, it is imperative to note that the structured currency, basically according to the central bank, is a currency that is backed by precious commodities, mainly gold, foreign currency reserves, and its supply depends on the availability of the foreign currency reserves and those are commodities, mainly gold, that are backing this structured currency. So riding on such an element, the central bank's initiative is to ensure that Zimbabwe has a stable currency, has a stable exchange rate, and a stable pricing mechanisms that will enable industry and commerce to plan in the future.
Absolutely. Stanley, very, very pertinent word you've raised there, which is stable. Now let's talk stability, because we've seen, or perhaps managed to also just watch a trajectory of stability within this currency that we have obviously accepted as well as welcomed very much with open arms as Zimbabwe. How important has the stability been with regards to the perhaps keeping of this currency first and foremost, and what do we owe the stability to? You did talk about gold reserves as well as foreign currency availability. What do we owe this stability to? The interchanging of rates hasn't happened, not so frequently. What do we owe this perhaps stability to?
That's a pertinent question. Basically, credit should go to the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe for walking the talk, because when this currency was introduced, they said that its availability would depend on the numbers in terms of the availability of gold and the increase or accumulation of foreign currency reserves, which means that they've managed to continue walking the talk by not coming up with excessive money. Remember, when this currency, which is gold-backed or foreign currency-backed, if it is just printed, or if it is just drip-fed into the public without the backing of such fundamentals, it will lose value. Now, the fact that they are continuing to monitor and also to ensure that in terms of value preservation, the supply of the ZiG depends on the quantity of the foreign currency and the gold backing that currency. It's a key element that has solidified its acceptance as a medium of exchange, thereby maintaining stability. Although, of course, in the last between August and October last year,
yes,
there
was some fluctuation.
Of course,
yes,
over 43%.
Oh yes,
depreciation. But after that, I think they managed to correct it, and from that period up to now, you can even see it in the market that the ZiG is the most sought after currency. Everyone is looking for the ZiG. Why? Because of the value it has, and also credit, like what I'm saying, to the central bank for maintaining what we call a tight monetary policy stance and walking the talk in as much as their promises to the industry and commerce is concerned regarding the need to ensure that the ZiG becomes a currency of choice.
Okay, the ZiG becoming a currency of choice. Now, we are going to get into a discussion very briefly about the interbank rate vis-a-vis the parallel market, or what they call the black market. But before we do that, Stan, perhaps you can break it down for me. We're looking at a space where, yes, you did speak about it being the most sought after currency, and credit to our Reserve Bank, the entire government of the Reserve Bank. But at the same time, let's look at the availability of cash. We do know that the soft currency has been available. However, the cash itself, we were promised coins, we were promised actual paper money, but the availability of cash with regards to ZiG is not as equated to as soft cash. How do you attribute some of these discrepancies that have happened over the months?
Indeed, when I had an interview yesterday with the central bank governor about that issue, he revealed that the main thrust is now coming up with a world-class note that will be printed. And he said that this world-class note will eventually ease the physical availability of the ZiG, riding on the current gains that have been achieved.
Does world-class mean that it will also be transactable outside of Zimbabwe?
I am not actually aware of that, and neither did I ask him about that, but he said that they are correcting that anomaly by now coming up with a paper of a Zig that is a world class that meets the international standards. But when it comes to that issue of these currencies becoming convertible into other currencies, especially like what you are saying, acting as a medium of exchange globally. Up to now, I did not ask him about that, and
Okay.
I cannot answer that because it's an issue of the central bank to answer. But from what they are saying, it's a phase, it's a gradual phase. Remember, this economy has been trying several currencies, domestic currencies.
Oh, yes.
And most of them
That
have
is very true.
not really managed to achieve their intended goals.
Very
but
true.
now with the Zig, like what the governor is saying, it's a phase, and they're trying to come up with a mechanism that protects it, that makes it more acceptable, that boosts its confidence in a gradual phase. And he even said that within that gradual phase, we are likely even to see Zig eventually being extended to the purchase of commodities like fuel, passports, among other issues, but in a gradual phase. Of course.
Absolutely. And the gradual phase is what we appreciate. It's just been 1 year. We celebrate 1 year anniversary tomorrow, the 5th of April 2025. Taking us back a little bit with regards to what happened between August and October last year. Perhaps, Stan, as we wind up the conversation, I did mention earlier that we are going to talk about the discrepancy between the black market and the interbank rate. How best can we close that gap with regards to this currency also just being stable and everyone, everywhere, in every place speaking one language with regards to one word, a rate?
Right. According to the central bank, actually the gap between the black market and the so-called black market and the formal market continues to narrow. And this is accredited to the central bank support of the willing buyer, willing seller system, whereby the central bank continues also to put foreign currency to safeguard the Zig. Right now, if you go even in the streets, you can even see on your own that the gap is
it's narrowed, but there is still a gap.
Narrowed. Of course.
Can we acknowledge that?
Really, it is. But
Okay.
now it's more manageable.
Okay.
Comparing to when it started, the Zig.
Oh, yes.
Up to now, it's more,
It's closed down.
Yeah, closed down. But like what you are saying, that will also depend on the ability of the central bank to ensure that this willing buyer, willing seller system is done in a manner in which it continues to come up with what they call a price discovery mechanism based on demand and supply forces. With the central bank also continuing to also drip fed part of the foreign currency to protect the Zig, like what they are doing right now.
Absolutely.
So that the gains that we've achieved so far
are not lost along the way.
Of course, yes.
Thank you very much. I do like that. A discovery mechanism. I do like that and appreciate once again that you have come here on the Headliner to contribute at length and perhaps I can say at wealth with regards to our nation's statistic. I do wish you the best in your endeavors, and I do hope tomorrow as we celebrate 1 year, any milestones that you will be taking with regards to your business reporting?
Of course, we'll be looking at how the Zig has stabilized the prices, exchange rate. We'll also be looking at how Zig has eased inflation pressures. Remember, from January up to March, inflation continues to
be on a decline.
Of course. So those are some of the milestones and some of the indicators. Also, the purchasing power parity, whereby more people can even now buy more using what? The Zig, though electronically, but it's still our currency. And also, my brother, I think you asked me something quite interesting. Global trends right now.
Yeah.
It's all now about electronic money.
Yeah,
digital money. So
I knew you were going to say that.
I think maybe the Reserve Bank, they are going that way. Digital money, electronic money. That we are.
But cash inongonakidza bata.
I know, of course. But globally, I think that's what they're trying to do. Let us promote the use of what? Digital transactions.
Digital transactions.
Mobile transactions.
All
and
right.
like anywhere in the world, I think if you go to States or any other country, UK, France, whatever, electronic transactions are
they are prevalent.
Exactly. Yeah.
Most definitely. Tell you what, I'm going to do this live on air. I'm going to send you $10 Eco Cash right now to you, Stanley James, just for coming here on the Headliner. And most definitely, we do appreciate once again Stanley James, who has come as a contributor. We do look forward to having more wealthy conversations, as well as more that treks with regards to the Zimbabwean economy and the gross domestic product that is obviously controlled by our currency, being the ZiG, the Zimbabwe gold. And now we close off this third and final segment, and of course close off this episode of the Headline. I do know you're looking forward to more, but we have to go. And yes, from me, Kurtley Gwindi, the crew behind the scenes, our producer Jipo Zashe, we thank you so much for joining us. And of course, all things to do with the Headliner, you catch them here on ZBC. Please do remember once again to subscribe to our pages. That is at ZBC News Online. And of course, we are always excited to be bringing you all this and more. Now we close off this segment. We say it is a pleasant viewing, and God bless Zimbabwe.